So welcome to the Head Guy podcast. Today, as always, the show is sponsored by Mahaba, the #1 destination guide here in Qatar. Pick up your copy at any supermarket or go online to find out all the information you need to know about Qatar, where to go, where to hang out, what school to go to, what hospital is the right hospital for you, etc., etc., etc. And that ties in nicely with my guest today, Corina Goetz.
Correct.
Did I get it right?
You
I'm always a bit wary about people's surnames. But welcome, Corina.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Now, you can introduce yourself so we will get it right. And you're kind of similar to this in a way, but more on a broader sense. And go ahead.
Correct. So I have a company called StarCaT, and a lot of people always say, oh, is it a cat? What is the cat for? And I'm like, no, my background is hospitality, hence the star. So it's 5-star, and CAT actually stands for consulting and training.
But, you know, as soon as you said StarCaT, and I knew what your company was and is all about, but when you say StarCaT, all I have is this image of a space cat in a space outfit floating in space.
That's right.
But did you
But it honestly, it really was born from very much the 5-star hospitality. And then I thought, consulting and training is just so nicely, and that's how it fitted together. And in the middle, there's actually a palm tree, and the palm tree is like my favorite tree. And it also ties in very nicely with the Middle East on what we do. So there you go. There's a whole story behind it. It's not just like we didn't just randomly make this up.
No, but I love it because, when I chose Ginger Camel, when I came to that name, every time I mentioned it to someone, it always put a smile on their face. So you must have the same reaction when people hear your company name.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they will never forget that name.
No, because it's so different and it's so unique. And once you break it down for people, I think then they really understand what the meaning is behind it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's go back in time. I always refer to LinkedIn pages, which sometimes people like and sometimes people find it very annoying because they haven't put all the information down. Is your LinkedIn page up to date? Has it got all the relevant information I need to know about you?
Yes, I think so. I definitely think so. And we do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. So like if you were going to look at the LinkedIn posts now, you would see that we're in Doha, that we've been in Doha for a couple of days, what we've been doing so far. I mean, of course, not everything, because you always pick out different things.
No, I don't need to know when you're brushing your teeth or,
well, exactly.
what kind of meal you're having, although a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Your education isn't down here. Where do
my education is basically, I am German also.
Well, it's all right. Don't worry about that. Someone has to be German. So were you educated in Germany?
Correct. I grew up in Germany, and I also did sort of my hotel management degree in Germany. And then literally straight after I finished that, I came to London. And
why?
Because I went on 2 school trips to London, and I loved it. And I said to my parents, I will definitely move to London. I don't know how long for. I don't know what I will do. I actually had a plan. This is the funny thing. I had a plan to go to London as an au pair, because it was the done thing when I was like a bit younger. And
really? You've just done a degree in hospitality.
No, this was before my degree in hospitality.
That's what you were kind of thinking.
When I finished school, I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then I thought, because I've been on these 2 school trips to London, and then I thought, no, I really want to go to London. Maybe I'll go as an au pair. And my dad was like, absolutely no way. I sent you to school to go and babysit somebody else's kids. He's like, there's no way. You need to do a degree. Like, figure out what you want to do, and then you can do what you want to do after. And that's exactly what I did. I did this hotel management degree close to Frankfurt, and then I said, when I finished it, initially I thought, maybe I'll stay in hotels in Germany, but the system in Germany is very rigid.
No, I can't believe that.
Yeah, I trained in a 4-star hotel, and I really wanted to go into 5-star, and I sent off a couple of applications, and people were like, you come from 4-star. You cannot possibly go to 5-star. It's
No.
impossible. Yeah. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe this is my clue here. I need to go to London. So I booked a very cheap Ryanair flight back in the day. For 3 days, I went to London. I interviewed, I'd actually found a guide because at that point, this was early 2000. There wasn't so much internet around at that point. I picked out, I think, 6 or 7 hotels that I saw in a guide that were 5-star. And I interviewed for all of them. And then the one that I thought was the nicest and also, offered me a job was the Dorchester. And that's how I started. And then this is also how I fell into the whole Middle East.
Okay, all right. Wait, you're jumping ahead for me.
Okay.
I'm just curious, whereabouts in Germany were you raised? Not that I know Germany, but give us some.
Well, actually, I was raised in East Germany.
Oh.
And, obviously this East and West term is just so crazy because they were really, and they still do to this day, stereotype people. Oh, where you from? Oh, you're from the East. Oh, really? And no, it was really, and I was about 12 when the wall came down.
Yeah.
And I have very vivid recollections of what it was like before in the East, and then how it all changed, and then how things changed. So
But were you in a city in East Germany, or were you out
like
in
a
the
medium-sized city,
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know what they had, maybe 50,000 inhabitants or something like that.
But what stands out for you? Because you say you can recollect what it was like before the wall come down. What kind of do you remember about that?
Loads of things. Like if there was bananas in the shop, you had to go in queue. If you were gonna buy little pineapple tins, they would be something like 18 euros. A box. And my dad, actually, funny enough, my dad used to go to Western Germany and France and places like that for work. And I always remember him vividly. I mean, it's like, it sounds so silly, but it was such a big thing because he always used to bring back chocolate and things from his trips. And he would always say, but you can't take this to school and you cannot discuss this in school. And my dad, my parents still have this to this day where we sit in the kitchen because of all the surveillance and everything. We sit in the kitchen and let's say the window will be half open and he would say, no, close the window, because they were always so aware that they were surveilled. And especially the people that went to the West for work, they were very much surveilled by everybody else, like the neighbors and things like that. And you could actually, after the wall came down, a few years after, you could ask for your file to see what was in your file. And my dad did, but he said, I think there was some stuff that got taken out. So it's a very interesting, and I mean, I don't know if we're ready yet for that transition with the Middle East, but the stereotyping leads me very nicely to the Middle East because I always felt, and then when I did my studies, I did that in Frankfurt, which was, of course, West Germany, and hospitality is such an interesting subject because a lot of the things in hospitality were so alien to me. Like I had no clue about wine, which was a big thing because where we were, there was a big wine region and you had to know, as part of your studies, you had to know different things. And I didn't know that. I'd never eaten like prawns, things like that when I was a kid, so this was all new to me. I had to learn all of this and I felt very much like the odd person out because of course everybody else, I'd been
brought up with that, yeah. But I'm just curious. But did it feel like you were walking into a sweet shop, and then from having nothing to then walking into a sweet shop and you got so much to select?
No, it wasn't quite like that because also when I was a kid, there were these shops in East Germany that if you had West money, they were called intershops, and basically you could buy West products there. I mean, this was like literally the dream store. If you went there, you got like I know it sounds so crazy, like you got your jeans, you got your chocolate, everything. And because my dad worked there and the money that they gave him, he usually saved, and then we would go to the shop and buy like a TV, or we would buy jeans or something like that we just couldn't ordinarily get at that point in East Germany. I mean, it was so insane. Like for these like small cars, if you wanted to have a car, there was a waiting list of 15 years. Can you
No.
imagine? It was wild. It was so different. Like, you cannot compare.
And what was the car? Because I remember a friend having a Lada. Did you have
Oh
Lada?
my God, that was very upmarket. Lada.
Really?
Yes. No, you used
That
to
was
have
just like a box on wheels.
No, they used to have the most common car that everybody had was like a Trubby.
A Trubby.
It was so ridiculous, honestly. And I actually learned to drive on that because
Okay.
my dad was like, if you can drive this, you can drive anything. And very rightly
And
so.
that was true.
Yeah, it was very true. It was very true. But yeah, so I always, like, when I then trained also like in Western Germany in hospitality, I always felt I was very stereotyped. They were like, oh, she's from the East, you know, what the hell does she know? But, you know, I tell you, even in my own family, the stereotyping went on because my husband is actually from West Germany. And when we met, I was like, I don't know, 25 or something. And my grandparents at the time were still alive. And my grandfather would say, he's from the West. What's he like?
No.
Probably like his family is very arrogant. I'm like, you haven't even met them. Like, what is your deal? But, you know, so it was really like, it was something that was very prominent for me. And I felt like this is really annoying. And maybe that's why I then also escaped to London because, you know, I just felt, you know, I can work in 5-star, which I got a job straight away. It was so easy. I'm like, okay, this is great. And B, nobody was asking me, are you West, are you East, whatever. I mean, sometimes people still do ask, but I think it's not as prominent anymore. But
No, I wouldn't think about it now.
Yeah, but people in Germany sometimes still do ask.
Okay.
So, but this whole kind of stereotyping is so interesting because I hated being a stereotype, and this leads very nicely to like what I do now, because it's all about breaking down stereotypes for the Middle East. And you know, I only fell into this Middle East kind of culture. I'd never seen an Arab in my life. And my child, I mean, you just heard my childhood
Well, no,
was very
absolutely.
like, you know. And I came to London and it was like a massive culture shock. And normally you would think a German person is normally very opposed to, you know, how the Middle East works. You know, like Germans are very like, if you're not there at 1 o'clock, like what's going on? You know, like where are you?
Absolutely.
You know, and so on paper, I wouldn't necessarily make the right candidate for the whole kind of Gulf region, but I really gelled with the people. And I think a lot of the values that they have, I think I also saw they were very, very similar to what it used to be like in East Germany. Like family was very important. And then when the wall came down, it kind of really crumbled a bit. I had a lot of friends where like families, they split up, they got divorced. There was lots of drama because suddenly some people had more, some people had less. And people were just not used to it, you know. And I felt like the whole kind of common ground was different, and it tied nicely with the Middle East. And you know, honestly, I worked with clients then from the Middle East for like a good, I mean, this was early 2000s, you know.
All right, look, you're still jumping. Let's go back.
Okay.
So your first job
Yes.
was at the Dorchester.
Correct.
I'm just curious, in Eastern Germany, was English taught as a language? Because your English is perfect. So
No, but well, it was your first language in school was Russian, which I was very good at, but I
yeah, I don't see Russian in your languages.
No, I didn't. You know, to be honest, I know like 2-3 words, but not like I couldn't have a proper conversation. I can pick up bits and pieces, but not. And I was never really into it. It was not my passion.
Yeah.
But you know, I loved English, and
really?
at the time, the one channel we could get was MTV. And
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
you know there used to be teletext on
Yes.
on the
at
old
the end.
TVs.
Yeah.
And I used to translate like the horoscopes and things. I would be like, oh my God, I want to know. And this is how I learned English.
That's how you learn English.
And I think once I'd been to London, obviously with school, and then I was watching MTV, you know, and I saw all of this, and the hub for MTV at the time was in London. I was like, I need to go to London. Like, this is really a thing. And I loved it. It was great. My mom, like, she cried. Oh my God, she cried like crazy at the airport.
Oh, really?
But my dad was like, no, I told you, once you've done your studies, do whatever you want to do.
Whatever you do.
It's fine.
Yeah. No, but so you got a job at the Dorchester, and as you said, it was a culture shock, because now you're literally open to all types of culture.
Yeah.
And what was the reaction from like people with you being German? You know, was there
There
any?
were- no, there-
you were kind of just
There were-
embraced and
Yeah, I think, and there were a lot of German people there at the time, because this was obviously, way before Brexit. So there were, and German people in hospitality, I think, were very well liked because, people felt they had a good education, they knew what things were about, and there were a lot of Germans there, to the point that they used to say to me in the beginning at the Dorchester, "You guys are in England, you need to stop talking German." So it was quite funny, but
Yeah.
but very quickly I moved through the ranks, and I did lots of different
yeah, because you were there for 7 years, so
close to 8 years, and
Yeah.
then I worked with somebody who actually at the time, I mean, this is all so old school because hotels don't really work like this anymore. He was the reception manager, and he'd been there for 30 years, and he was Algerian, and he knew everybody from the Middle East. But of course, back at that time, there was not much information also online. So he became my single source of information.
so when was this? When
This was, probably like I started in 99 until 2007.
yeah.
And then I got everything from him that...
But why? Because here you are in London enjoying, there's so many cultures,
Yeah.
but then you're drawn to the Middle East.
I don't know.
Seems to
I don't know why. I think I really gelled. Their personality gelled with mine. And I also just felt, I guess maybe it was the thing that, a lot of people also misunderstood, and there was a lot to it, and I think people just couldn't understand why they were traveling with, loads of different people and how they behaved very different to your like American guests. But I just felt they had this warmth to it, this hospitality. They would take time to remember you, and it was just really nice. And I just loved it. And then for a brief bit, I also worked with people like celebrities, and I was like, oh my God, no, like, let me go back to the Middle East. And the person who used to do celebrities, he said, I don't know, I don't understand how you can work with these sort of like unpredictable, I'd much rather work with celebrities. And I'm like, no, definitely not.
Yeah, aren't they the same? Unpredictability?
No.
No, there is a
Very different. And I
Yeah.
felt like, I think also like the golf really appreciated if you took time, like there was I remember there was a Kuwaiti guest, and nobody wanted to deal with this Kuwaiti client. And I just couldn't understand, because to me, he was always nice. But you know why? Because I took an interest in him. I asked him, and it's like, it wasn't just another person, that, I don't know, you had to get them to pay their bill or something. But I took a bit of time, and we got on really well. And everybody else never understood. They're like, oh, he always shouts at us. And I'm like, I don't know what your problem is. Like, I love doing this. And then we used to, I mean, this was sort of what I would almost call like the heyday of the Dorchester, we would do all the head of states from the Middle East with, it was great. Like now when I see some of the people, like now, of course, there's so much social media and you see a lot more photos and things, which at the time we didn't have. I look at these photos and I'm like, oh my God, he used to stay in this suite, And just this morning, we actually had a meeting with somebody here from Qatar, and I've known him since my Dorchester days.
Oh wow.
And he said, and it's so funny because I think the last time I saw him was way before COVID. We bumped into each other in Harrods in London. I mean, what are the odds?
As you do, huh? Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's so funny, and it's so sweet. And now I look after some other part of his family, and this is then how we reconnected, and it's just so beautiful, like these relationships. It doesn't matter if you lose them for a little bit. Like, you can always pick up on them. And I think that's what I love about the Middle East, like you can always pick up where you left off. And I think for me, and again, this is very much what my company is about. I think in Europe, and let's not even talk about America, they're still so misunderstood. And people are just like, there's so many stereotypes. And I think me being a stereotype.
Well, that's what I want to go back to, is actually because you mentioned earlier about the Germans and how it's all very time conscious and things have to run in a certain way, etc. How do you come with that kind of package, as well as being curious about people and wanting to, relate to people? Is there a part of you that you have to fight? How does it work?
I think yes and no.
Okay.
But I am very German. I love being organized. I have my spreadsheets. I do all of the, like, this is honestly, like my husband says, oh my God, I don't
Oh,
know
he's
why.
not like that.
He's German, but
Yeah,
I say to
exactly.
him, you're not German. In that way. He's very relaxed, and he's like, he would never, I don't know. He's just not like me, but I'm very organized in general, and I love it. But I think, you know, a lot of people very much love that, because I have learned over the years now, what are the questions that I need to ask, you know, what are the things that I need to get, that I absolutely must get in order to get things right for some of these clients. And they appreciate that. So I think in a way it works really well. It complements each other.
Absolutely.
But yes, you cannot be like, oh, okay, you didn't come at 2:00. Well, I'm sorry, I'm no longer there. You know, like it doesn't work like that.
No. I'm just curious, when did you have that light bulb moment to start your own business?
I mean, I started my own business back in 2015, but I was very much still aligned with one of the hotels that I'd worked for before, because that was almost like, I'd say, my safety blanket.
Very wise, very wise.
And the reason, to be honest, at that point was more like, because my son was very small. I mean, he's nearly 11 now, but he was 3 back then. I didn't want to do as much travel. I needed a bit more flexibility to pick him up, and this was just the only way to do it at the time. And then
I'm just curious, why then did you feel that you should start a business? Surely that's the time when you should have a normal 9 to 5, etc., look after children.
No, because the 9 to 5 didn't work.
It wasn't for you.
No, it didn't work in that sense that, you know, the 9 to 5 at that point was very much like, I was dealing with Middle Eastern clients, but they would still call me at 10 o'clock at night. They would call me on the weekend, but the hotel would be very much like, you know, this is our setup. This is, again, way before COVID. This is our setup. You know, flexible working wasn't a thing, and we can't just give it to one person, then we have to give it to the whole office.
Yeah.
And it's really, you know, so it became, so then for me to sort of step out, they could kind of say, oh, but she's a separate entity, like she's not like staff, so they could kind of justify why I had a different work pattern. But, and you know, but like I would do things that, I mean, I don't know if people would do it now, but for me this wasn't a problem. Like I would go in the morning, let's say for a couple of hours, then I would pick up my son, and then I would have, let's say, somebody arriving from the golf in the evening, and I would come back. I would put my son to bed and then come back, do the arrival, go back, and people would be like, you're crazy, like you're working all the time. I'm like, no, but it gives me joy, and this is the balance that I want, because I have time with my son, but I can also look after my clients. I just need a bit more flexibility here.
Yeah, but you say flexibility, but wasn't there times where you wanted to spend time with your son, or you had to go and pick him up, and then the client wants you to deal with certain things?
I don't know. I felt
you were able to.
I was able to actually quite balance that. For me, this sort of setup worked a lot better.
Okay. So when did the time come when you were able to
switch?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it changed during COVID.
Yeah. How did that affect you?
Because nobody traveled. Suddenly everybody was like, it was dead. Some of the hotels had to, well, basically all of the hotels had to close for a certain period of time, you know, and I was like, oh my God, like what more can I do? We didn't know how long this was going to go on. And then I thought, wow, what more can I do with this knowledge that I have? And then I started looking around, and I had dabbled sort of a little bit in training, and I'd done the one-off training courses, but I was like, oh no, I really like looking after clients. It's more my thing, you know, maybe the training isn't all for me. But then I did a lot more, I think, like everybody during COVID, we had a lot more time. I did a lot of Tony Robbins courses online.
Good old Tony. Yeah.
Good old Tony. But it really opened my mind, and I thought, okay, there's more stuff that I can do. And, you know, and I still worked with the hotel up until last year. You know, because it was my safety blanket.
Why not? Absolutely. If it's there.
And, you know, it paid the bills. And of course, with everything, like, you're scared. But then there were a few pivotal moments last year where I thought, okay, maybe I need to just become completely independent. First of all, I think I felt like, you know, I wanted to dedicate a lot more time to this training. And people had said that they needed it and they had done it. And I just always felt like I didn't have enough time. And then the other thing was I had a huge client, and they came to London, and the hotel that I was working with, like they didn't have their normal rooms and things that they needed in order for the group to work. And they said to me, well, why don't you book us another hotel? And I said, but I can't, because I'm contractually tied to this hotel. And I was like, oh my God. So maybe, and this client I'd worked with for years, and I thought, oh no, I really want to work with them, you know? So then I thought, okay, maybe this is just something, you know, I can still look after these clients, so I still know what's going on, but then I can also focus a lot more on the training, because that training, and again, this then also coincided very nicely with things like the World Cup, you know, Saudi opening up with Vision 2030, and people would, like, for me, I would be so interested to see how things have changed and how they have moved, and then I would talk to people in London, and they would, let's say they get approached for a project in Saudi, and they would be like, yeah, it's fine, you know, we've been to Dubai. I'm like, Dubai is not representative of the region at all. And then people also weren't, you know, there were so many more complexities. I think, you know, obviously, how long have you been in Qatar?
17 years.
17 years, you know, so you've also lived through the Qatar crisis. I mean, I was very well aware when I traveled, I had to go via Oman or Kuwait in order to get to Saudi, and all the nice things that before you fly from Dubai to Doha, which is a very short trip, you know, you couldn't do. You had to go all the way. But people also weren't aware of what that also meant in terms of, like, we had a lot of clients that asked us, what is the ownerships of the hotels? Because we have to be careful of where we're going to stay. A lot of clients then also, for example, would refuse to shop in Harrods, to the point that Harrods would come up with these sort of, like, really these plain bags, so it wouldn't say where they had been shopping, you know. So there was a lot more implication to it, and I think people just didn't understand. And especially the people that then suddenly said, oh yeah, we're here for the project, you know, and we've been to Dubai. I'm like, my God, guys, you know, I think you need to do a lot more research here, because otherwise it's very easy to, like, to make mistakes, but also to make faux pas that you don't even know, and then you lose the deal and you have no idea why you did.
No, exactly. So you go down the training route. So what do you offer?
So I offer one-on-one training for companies, basically, you know, Europe-wide or UK-wide, very much training for people that have projects in the Middle East, but then, you know, they have to go out there, they want to feel a bit more comfortable with the culture. But then also on the flip side, for example, in London or anywhere else where they have clients from the Gulf and they feel their staff doesn't really know. And when I say the staff, is not your Middle East person in charge of the Gulf region, it's your receptionist, your housekeeping, you know. Or we were working with, we were talking to some private hospitals, the people on the front line that sometimes feel, you know, there's a disconnect between the client, because they just don't understand what the client wants, but at the same time the client feel, oh my God, we're not being looked after. These people just don't, like, where's the service? So that's kind of where, you know, we come in, we advise. But we've also, like, we had somebody who lived in Dubai for a while, and she had a big project in Saudi, and she was like, you know, I really want to just drill down a bit more, like, explain Vision 2030, all these giga projects, and, you know, and I want to know, what are the different levels of government, who is who, all of these kind of things. How do you address people properly? Those are all kind of things that we can help with. And then we have what we call a Middle East membership hub for, like, smaller businesses that want kind of ongoing support. So they want to know what's going on in the region, and so we do a masterclass every month, we do a Q&A every month, and then also we help people to work on their relationships. We tell them, oh, this has just been announced, like Saudi just put in a new holiday, you should be aware of it. You know, if you have Saudi clients, connect with them over this is a great topic, or this is a hot topic that everybody is talking about. So it's all these kind of things that you don't have time if you're, let's say, an accountant, a wealth manager, but you should know them, because that's the way you can do better business with the Gulf.
But that's what I tell my team, is that every business is just focused on their business. You don't have time to, you know, look into, do the due diligence And for media as well, you know, you haven't got time to market yourself. You're just focused on your product, your brand, or your service. So your position is perfect. I'm just curious, how did you, all right, you learned a lot when you were working for the hotels, working with your various clients, but, you know, how have you kept up to date? How have you learned, you know, certain customs? Have you flown to the regions? Have you thrown yourself in there? You know, how have you developed yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I mean, all through, you know, learning by doing. Like, I've traveled extensively to the region. I've been to every single Gulf country multiple times. You know, I've been to Saudi when a tourist visa nobody had even heard of. You know, you had to jump through hoops and loops. Somebody had to invite you. Maybe you got the visa, maybe you wouldn't. You know, you had to, as a woman in particular, you had to get changed on the plane. You know, you had to follow certain steps. I mean, honestly, I remember one of my first trips to Riyadh. You know, I thought, oh, I really want to have a coffee. And I walked into this, the driver stopped in front of the Starbucks, and there were two entrances, a single and the family. And I'm thinking, well, quite clearly I'm not a family. So I walk into the single and they go, no, you're in the wrong entrance, because obviously the single entrance was for single men.
Yeah.
And not for the families. But, you know, when you go to Dubai, I'd never seen such thing, because I'd been to Dubai before. I'd been even to Qatar before, and I hadn't seen this. But in Saudi, it was very different, you know, and you had to really adapt. And this is how I learned. And then people would explain to me, oh, you can do this, or you can do that. And then it was hugely exciting once it started opening up.
But that's what I just want to stop you there, because, you know, being in London and receiving, you know, Arab guests, etc., is completely different to then throwing yourself on the other end to where they're living and all the customs, etc., Did you question yourself? Have I made the right decision?
No, never. No. I loved it. Honestly, I loved it. And especially I loved that when, for example, somebody in London said, oh, we need a majlis, and everybody in the hotel would go, what?
Yeah.
You know, I would be like, no, but guys, you know, when you go out there, it's like this. You go into like a receiving room and you need, you know, this is very hotel-like. You need extra bins, you need extra tissues, because you sit around in this U shape and you have drinks and food and dates to be served. And these are the kind of things you need. So no, I loved it. And I loved seeing it like in real life, and how, and this was the most fascinating, I think, for me, was like when I first also went there, and of course it carried on now, that people would invite you to their homes. They're like, come to my house, have dinner, meet my wife, my kids, my cousin. Like, who would do this in Europe? No. You know, people would be like, I'm not taking you to my house, I've just met you, you know.
Yeah, what would the wife think?
Well, exactly. You know, and it was so beautiful. And I thought it was so hospitable. And again, I think that went back to the fact that I thought it was so misunderstood, because a lot of people, and a lot of people still to this day, they tell me, what do you mean you go to Saudi? You know, you have to get dressed up. You have no rights, no nothing. Oh, you know, in Qatar, it's going to be a disaster with the World Cup. I mean, the coverage of the World Cup was unbelievable. It was so bad. In the UK, they didn't even show the opening ceremony. And
no, I thought that was terrible.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was so misunderstood. And for the final, I was actually in Germany. And in Germany on TV, they were like, why are they giving Messi this black cloth? What is all of this about? And I'm like, oh my God, you guys have not taken the time to learn about the culture. And that is also where I thought, you know, this is not right, you know. And I mean, I tell you another story, and you'd be so surprised. Everybody I tell the story, they're like, I cannot believe this. So I have this client from the Gulf, and, you know, they are a really good client for hotels. And when they came before, and this is not that long ago, maybe a year ago or something, you know, somebody in the hotel turned around and said to me, what happens if they sit during afternoon tea in their traditional clothes? I said, well, what happens? It's not a problem. Oh no, but it doesn't go with the afternoon tea look. I'm like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and something like this for me, like this really hits home, because I'm like, this is not right. I'm sorry. You wouldn't say this to anybody else. And this is a good client of the hotel. So you shouldn't be having these prejudices.
Absolutely.
Or you should take some more time to learn. Like with the Bish, that is a huge honor for people to, for people, or for Messi in that case, to receive this. But people just are so narrow-minded. And this is where I want to be, that sort of link or that bridge, to try and tell them, okay, open your mind a little bit, let me explain to you this and this and this. And then people, and a lot of the times then people go, oh, okay, now I get it. And but if you follow the majority of the media or whichever, you get the total wrong impression.
But isn't that good for you? Isn't that good for business when there is this, the media is the media. They do what they want to do, and they feed us with all that negativity. It's like a jealousy thing. Although I'm always amazed, because all the governments always come here and want to do business.
Always. The German foreign minister has just been here.
Huge German contingent out here, but the media are on another path. I
mean, I have to tell you, I looked at the German Instagram stories yesterday, and maybe I'm just like a stickler for details, but I looked at this and I was like, you couldn't even get the name of the Qatari foreign minister right. I mean, seriously, like, who does your social media? This is just embarrassing. It's wrong. But, no, I think also not everybody understands that, sometimes these details make a big difference. And
Absolutely.
If you do business in a big way, you should be doing better. I mean, for something like this, and it was not the foreign minister's account, it was the it was the ministry, the foreign ministry, who posted this, and she had reposted the story. And I thought, oh my God, who advises you guys? Like, somebody should just fact check it. Well, I don't actually like all these fact checkers, but no, have somebody there that actually knows and say, look, at least you met with A, B, C, D, get their proper names, get their proper titles, and do it properly on social media. And this is because you would ask the same from them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you'd be upset if they got your name wrong.
Of course.
Yeah. So is it good for business that you have to educate people, that you are the go-to person when it comes to culture, traditions, etc., for businesses, for people who are coming over here?
I mean, of course it's good for business, but for me, I think it has a much bigger why, because it's not just about business. For me, I think this is very personal, and I go back to this whole stereotyping, because I hated being a stereotype. So, and now all the hospitality and all the kindness and everything that that I've received in the region, I just feel should be reciprocated. And especially if you want to do business with the region, you should be respectful and you should do your homework. And that is just basic courtesy, I think.
Do you think it's going to change the more, because there were closed areas. Saudi wasn't very open. Now it is very open, and it's inviting people in, businesses in. Dubai obviously has invited a lot of people in. Tourism is a huge factor. Qatar now with the World Cup and its 2030 vision, etc., etc. Do you think there's going to be more understanding because the region is opening up? Do you see changes?
I hope, because the more
there was a hesitation then. I hope. Yeah.
No,
okay.
I do hope, but I think I'm only one person, and even if there's a few people that work with me, I think it needs more people to see it, and I think it's a combination effort of things for people to see. Like, for example, I think what I think is so beautiful, like now for the whole Gulf region, now that this Qatar situation is resolved, is I think if they all pull together, I think it would be so amazing. I was reading about that proposed rail that they want to do, between where you can then go from Qatar to UAE, to Oman, to Saudi. I mean, this is going to be phenomenal. And that region has so much history.
Yeah.
And it's not just all about, oh, you all go to Saudi or you all go to Dubai, because maybe then, if the infrastructure and everything is there, then you can go to all these places. And, some of the places I've showed to my son, and he's like, this is really nice. I really want to go and see Saudi, you know, and that's kind of what I want. I think also for that next generation to be a little bit more open-minded and say, oh no, you know, these people have a different culture. We don't really understand it. Well, just take a little bit of time to educate yourself, and then you will see, you know, that you're actually much more aligned. And there's so many things that are actually very different, actually very similar to European culture. I mean, we went to, I think it was the National Museum of Qatar the other day, and there was a video about how, you know, how they used to fight on the horses, and I'm like, this is exactly what they used to do in the UK and in Germany, you know, when they had like the horse and the spear.
Absolutely, the jousting. Yeah.
Yes, so similar.
Absolutely.
You know, so why are we making out that it's so different?
No.
And when it really isn't.
No, when you've been living here for so long, you understand that there is not much that different between cultures.
Yeah.
It's
And-
just we look different, we dress a little bit different, but
Exactly.
at
And
the
I
heart
think,
of it is generally family,
yeah, very much so.
which is the core of every culture, of every country, etc.
Although I think here, you know, it's much more enforced, like the looking after the elderly and things.
Well,
You know,
that
I
was-
think this is something that Europe could, or the rest of the world could learn a lot from.
Well, that was going to be my next question. How is it changing? You know, because you've been doing StarCaT since 2015. You've been in the hospitality industry for a long while, and you know you've been doing business in the region. How do you see the different generations? You know, because older generation you have to treat in a way that the younger generation is different, because they've been educated in America, the UK, Europe, so they're more open. Do you adjust the way you deal with certain generations?
I think you have to,
Yeah.
100%. And, you know, again, this is another misconception where I think a lot of people in the West think, you know, when people come, for example, to London or somewhere, they say, oh, you know, we have to show them what is the hottest restaurant. And here I am saying, no. They're going to tell you what is the hottest restaurant because they've already seen it on social media. And they're like, what do you mean? And, you know, like if you look at social media usage through the GCC, all the technology that they're doing, they're way ahead of everybody else.
Absolutely.
And people are always, you know, they find it absolutely fascinating and mind-blowing that when you tell them, you know, that social media usage is so high. I think I looked at some statistic actually predominantly for Saudi because it was a big topic not long ago. And you know, they have, I think the population is 35 million and 30 million of them are online and 30 million of them are using WhatsApp. I mean, like, you know, you don't get these statistics in Europe like that.
Yeah.
So it's very much, I think social media also brought us closer together, but also for this region, it's very educated. So don't try and tell a young person, oh, you have to go there, this is the hip thing. They'll probably know, you know, the hipper thing than what you think.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's a lot of influencers as well from this region that
lot.
are into food or fashion,
yeah,
travel, etc., etc.
exactly.
With the generation, as I said, the older generation and the younger generation, is there more of is it more fluid? Is it more, you know, for your business as well, is it more faster paced than it was in the past where, you know, it's all about the major lists, etc., etc.? Is, you know, are they communicating more on WhatsApp to you, you know, compared to the older generation, which might be pick up the phone you, etc.? Are you seeing?
No, not at
No?
all. Even the older generation, like WhatsApp
Are
is the thing. I mean, honestly, email, I think barely anybody in the GCC does a lot of emails. I mean, everything comes on WhatsApp. Or okay, if it's like, let's say somebody that's a lot more security conscious, you go to, like, let's say Signal, or, you know, there's other apps like that. But the communication is on WhatsApp, and people don't call.
Oh, really? They just
No.
you just get a message and that's
Because I think also it's almost like a sign of respect. They're like, no, we don't want to disturb you with the message. You can get to the message when you want to get to the message.
Yeah.
But if I call you, what if it's a you know, like if people want to call, they would send a WhatsApp before saying, is it a good time to speak now
Yeah.
or when can we speak?
Oh, superb. And that's where I was going. What about you promoting yourselves? What have you used to get the message out there that you're here and letting people know that you're the experts in, you know, relationships, etc., etc.?
I think we do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but we also, of course, we're on Instagram. You know, we during COVID we did a lot of things on YouTube. I think we need to maybe come back to this, but it's
I did find you guys on there.
yeah, and but also like WhatsApp networking. You know, and one of the things that I found the most interesting is that this region is very active on LinkedIn. You wouldn't believe it.
Oh, absolutely. No,
I
for
found like there's, you know, royals on there. There's all sorts of people on there and they're all watching. And, you know, it was so funny because we obviously did a lot of stuff about Saudi because there was a lot of things coming out and there's news coming out every week. And we have, you know, some people that we work with from Qatar and they're like, you guys, you need to, you know, I think you need to do a bit more on Qatar. And yesterday we met somebody, a local Qatari client, and he said, you're soon going to have this green Saudi passport, but then I think we're not going to deal with you anymore. No, but he meant it in a jokingly way.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting that they were all watching all the stuff that we're doing, but we hadn't actually. My last trip to Qatar was last year in May. And then in autumn, we just mainly did Saudi because also we thought, you know, with the World Cup, it's so busy. Everybody's so busy. A lot of people didn't travel. We were like, we don't want to add to the stress. Let's just go once it's all finished. And so we did a lot more on Saudi. So, of course, our content was very Saudi heavy, but people noticed. And they were like, no, you should be doing more on the other ones. And we're like, okay. And that's why I think this trip now for Doha it's been so beautiful. We've been to like quite a few of the museums, you know, all of the roads are finished, like a lot of the buildings are finished. It's been brilliant. So it's been like now we have loads of content on Doha, which is going to be great.
When you say content, have you just been taking your phone and just videoing stuff? So you've got stuff to talk about. But also like 2 weeks ago we went to Dubai because there was this big travel show in Dubai, and that was really interesting to see what are different countries in the GCC doing for projects, you know, where they're pushing things. And this is very interesting because this is very interesting then for people that work with us back in the UK or in Europe that want to know, you know, where are the opportunities. And it's not all about Dubai. Like, you know, there's a lot of other Emirates that are doing things. There's a lot of other things that are happening in Qatar. Maybe you just haven't heard about it because it's not obviously in the British news because it's not of that much interest to them. Yeah, but as you say, it's kind of hard that, you know, most of your content was Saudi because Saudi is the in thing at the moment. That is the place where everything is happening. There is so much happening in one place, where Dubai, you know, it's had its time in, it's always developing, but not as fast as Saudi has. You know, it's literally thrown a hell of a lot of money to lots of projects. It's not just one project. There's so many projects happening all at one go. I'm just curious, you know, when you're marketing yourself, and you said you're very predominant on LinkedIn, are you doing a general, you know, you throw the net to catch companies that are interested in doing business, or do you target certain markets, certain industries? How does it work?
It's a mix. It's very much, we also do a lot of networking with different industries. And I think coming from hospitality, initially, I think we were doing a lot of stuff with some hotels and things that were much more aligned to hospitality. But I think it's interesting, we now looked at some media companies that wanted some training. We've looked at some insurance companies, and we never looked at it that way. But, you know, I think it's also, like, risk is also a very real thing, because if you go to the region as a company and you haven't taken time to educate your employees, the risk of damage to reputation to a company, but also the personal risk to a person if you do things wrong,
absolutely,
are a real thing. So we're talking with some insurance companies to see how we can help them in integrate that basically into some of their policies when they send out people to the Gulf, which I think, you know, is a really good way of approaching something like this. And it also, I think, shows a lot of care towards your employees, because I still also feel a lot of people would say, oh, you know, I think I'll be okay if I go. But deep down, especially if they're women, you know, they think, I'm not really sure, but I don't really want to say that I don't feel comfortable. And that's exactly, you know, where we can help. Because people ask us things all the time. How should I dress? What should I say? You know, what is it going to be like? I don't really know. You know, I think I would only go to the region with you because it's just so alien. I've never been. You know, so there's all these things where we can really help and say, you know, if you open yourself up, you will find a whole different world, and you will see how amazing it actually is. And it's so safe, you know. And this is the thing we always forget, you know, we're in Dubai, we're in Doha, we're in Saudi, you know, we go to a coffee shop, we leave the phone on the table. Like, this would not happen in London. The phone would be gone in like 2 seconds.
Absolutely. No, but isn't it weird? I had a friend over that I've known all my life, and she came over for the first time just to stay for the weekend. And suddenly I saw through her eyes what she was seeing, where I take everything for granted, you know, it's just the norm. And because she's been fed that Western media stance, I felt her quite rigid, quite nervous being in certain situations. And it was just, you know, being at a restaurant or, as you say, having a coffee. And but just because it was a different environment, and that environment that had been, you know, fed from the media that, oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. It was just like, look, it's all right. Just
and
relax.
It's you know, it's really so funny how when you see how hospitable people are always
amazing.
surprised.
Absolutely.
And it's like I said before, these relationships go back a long way. And oh my God, I have a really funny story. On the way here, we were stopping at a traffic light, and we were sitting in the car, and there was a Qatari gentleman walking past, and he like looked at it, and I looked at him, and I thought, oh my God, I know this. So so I put down the window, and he was like, hi, how are you? Oh my God, what you doing in Qatar?
Wow.
And this is somebody I hadn't seen since pre-COVID, and it's somebody who used to work in London. And like, this is so beautiful, you know, where would this happen?
Yeah.
It's really nice. And he was so happy that, you know, we were there, and it was just such a nice moment, honestly.
Very nice. So where do you see yourself moving in the future? Are you going to stay in this region? Is that your future?
100%.
StarCaT. See, I always think StarCaT.
I love
you
it.
got it. You got it. Oh, I love your when I went to your YouTube channel, obviously one of you is into 80s music, because your intro is very 80s.
Oh, you think?
Yes. Do you not think?
No.
Well, I don't know where you found the music, but it's very, and it's quite long as well. So I just thought, oh, they must be into their 80s.
Okay. No. We just like
But
it.
yeah, you need a catchy StarCaT.
Okay.
Or
tune,
actually
maybe.
get someone to compose a StarCaT jingle.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. How funny.
You need
be?
it. Anyway, so yeah, you see yourselves in the region. You're not going to expand to the rest of the world where, you know, this is it for you.
I love it. Honestly, yeah. I'd love the Gulf. And, you know, people say to me, oh, can you do this for China? I'm like, no, I don't know anything about.
Yeah, but there's misconception about China. I went to China for my 40th. It was a beautiful country. The people were so friendly, so nice, so accommodating. It was just amazing. And you get all the negative press about China.
100%. But I think there's a place for somebody else to look after this Asia. I'm going to stick to Middle East because I just love it.
Thank you, Corina. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome.
And I wish you all the best.
So much fun. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for watching. Just a big shout out to our sponsor. It's Mahaba, the #1 destination guide here in Qatar. Pick up your copy here in the supermarkets, or go online and find out all the information you need to know about Qatar and schools, hospitals, etc., etc. Take care. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.